So today we're going to be checking out all of the Yves Saint Laurent Y fragrances. We have Y Eau Fraiche, and I believe that's Y EDP in this hand. And then we have Y Eau de Toilette and Y Live, I believe, in that hand. They're kind of hard to tell apart, Y Live and Y EDP. This one is the EDP. It is darker than Y Live. We are going to be comparing all of these fragrances today. This has been a very requested video. I'm surprised at how many of you guys have been requesting me to do this. Typically, I get a lot of requests for videos, but not often are a bunch of people requesting the same thing all at once. And that was the case here. It's just taking me some more time to get the other bottles in I needed and to really fully test them out. So now I'm finally here. Finally going to be comparing all these fragrances. Of course, like with all of the other videos I've done like this, I'm going to talk about how they all smell and go over the performance and things like that. I'm going to run through it pretty quickly because we do have 4 fragrances to get through here. So if you've been wanting this video for a while, hopefully you're ready and hopefully you stick with me until the end as well. All the links to all of these will be linked down below. If you want to pick one up or all of them up or one or two, whatever, check them out down below. Now, I hope you're ready. Let's get into it. So we're going to start off with the Eau de Toilette. This is obviously where it all started. This is the first Yves Saint Laurent Y fragrance. And I still remember when it came out because I remember we were all really anticipating the next Yves Saint Laurent fragrance release. Obviously, they were really put on the map by Yves Saint Laurent, La Nuit de l'Homme, and by L'Homme as well. Of course, they did have Coros and all the other classics, Yves Saint Laurent Pour Homme, back in the day, but I mean, really all the buzz and all of the hype came from La Nuit de l'Homme and L'Homme. Those are kind of the main two, especially La Nuit de l'Homme, really just kind of set the brand into, a soaring topic within the fragrance community within the past few years. So YSL Y was kind of one of their most recent releases outside of all of the flankers of Yves Saint Laurent L'Homme and La Nuit de l'Homme. And it was pretty anticipated, and honestly, not a lot of people were all that impressed with it. I still remember a lot of people being disappointed when they first got this in. So this obviously is the Yves Saint Laurent DNA that we're all familiar with. Now the EDT, this is going to be lighter than the EDP, for example. It's got more citrus, it's aldehydic, it's effervescent, it's kind of, a little bit sparkling. It's clean, it's fresh. It smells like you're wearing a white t-shirt and shorts. You're just dressed down casual in the summertime. That's kind of the vibe that this fragrance puts off. Just very easy to wear, very clean, very casual. Clean, fresh linens with a bit of sweetness and, a little bit of a citrus touch in there, as well as kind of basically what you get from this fragrance. So overall, it is pretty solid. And, some people will say that this is kind of Yves Saint Laurent's take on the blue fragrance frenzy, I guess you could call it at this point. All of the blue ambroxan fragrances. Now, while I will agree that it does take inspiration from those blue fragrances, I do think it does put itself apart from them. You take a look at something like Dior Sauvage and Versace Dylan Blue. I mean, overall, pretty similar aside from a few key differences. Obviously, they don't smell, like clones of each other, but they are really, really similar in terms of composition. This one really sets itself apart from those other blue fragrances while still kind of hinting back to it a little bit, and that's the same with all of the other ones we're going to be talking about today. Performance on this one is going to be in that moderate range, about 6 hours on average, maybe sometimes pushing 7 in terms of longevity. Projection, it will push off your skin a bit. Heat does help this one, so if you want it to project more, wear it out in the summer. Now, where does this one fit in the line? In my opinion, you're probably better off going for the EDP in most cases. Now, I don't want to write this one off and say that it's not worth buying anymore. You see that happening with something like, for example, Dolce & Gabbana, the one EDT, and the EDP. No one buys the EDT anymore. No one really talks about it. Everyone goes for the EDP, and honestly, I don't necessarily want to say that you should do that in this situation. Just be noted that the EDP is going to be a bit sweeter, and we're going to go ahead and talk about that one now. And of course, here it is, Y EDP. Now, this one is still fresh. It does still maintain that aldehydic, somewhat effervescent, sparkling, citrus, fresh opening, but you will notice that this one is sweeter and heavier compared to the EDT, but it still does maintain the the clean smell that it has. Like I was talking about earlier, that clean, fresh linens type of thing. You still do very much get that in this fragrance, which is good news. That's kind of really what makes this DNA pretty wearable and usable, in my opinion, that clean smell. You still do get that, but just do realize this one is noticeably heavier and sweeter, but you do want to realize that this one is noticeably heavier and sweeter, thus making it maybe a bit harder to pull off on those really, really warm summer days. For me, this one shines in the springtime. If you're wanting to wear a fragrance that's going to be very strong, get you noticed in the springtime, go for something like this, because the performance from this one, I get every bit of 9 hours, sometimes more in terms of longevity. Projection is also very good as well. This stuff pushes out like crazy, which is very good and is a huge improvement over the Eau de Toilette. They really turned it around. They fixed that performance issue with the EDP, and I have to give them props on that. That's really a great way to, roll out a flanker, is to really have something that does have improvements. And this one does bring, in my opinion, a lot of value to the Yves Saint Laurent Y line. And out of all of the ones, this is the one you kind of hear talk about the most, or, at least it is talked about more than the EDT. So again, in my opinion, a little bit of cool weather is best for this one, although if you want, you can wear it out in the summer heat. I do think that there will be better options like we're going to be talking about here later on, or alternatively, for the hotter days, you can go for the EDT. Again, performance isn't going to be quite as much, but it is still one that you could consider adding to your arsenal, and it will treat you really good on those really, really hot summer days. Moving up next here, we have Yves Saint Laurent Y Live. So this is one of the newer releases. I believe this was a 2019 release. I want to say end of 2019, although I can't remember for sure. But again, this one is a little bit on the newer side here. This one hasn't rolled out to the point where everyone has tried it yet, like the EDP. Now, one thing I will say about this one, if you look on Fragrantica, for whatever reason, the notes are just off. Like it has like ginger and some other weird notes. I mean, the note breakdown is 100% different than the EDT and EDP. That's pretty off-putting. That's pretty misleading. If you look in the comments, people are actually saying the same thing. The notes are wrong, and someone listed the actual notes. And you can also find the actual notes on other fragrance websites. I believe Parfumo.net has the correct note breakdown listed, and it does correlate a lot more with the other fragrances in the line. This one does smell noticeably similar to the EDP in terms of its sweetness, however, not so much its depth. So now let's go and talk about how this one smells. This one does smell noticeably similar to the EDP version in terms of sweetness, but not in terms of its depth. This one just doesn't quite have as much depth and as much punch as the EDP. In my opinion, this one is stuck somewhere in between the EDT and the EDP. You have the EDT, very fresh, very bright, effervescent, sparkling, all that good stuff, with just a little bit of sweetness in there. Then you have the EDP, which really kind of amps up that sweetness and that depth. This one almost falls in between them. It does take some aspects of both of them and kind of combines them to one. Now, with that being said, this is kind of the point here where it starts to get redundant, in my opinion. Do I think this is necessarily a flanker that you have to have? I'm going to say no to that one. If you like the Y fragrances and you want to own it to complete the collection, at that point, sure, it's a nice one to have. But it is just kind of hard to recommend when it is so similar to the EDT and the EDP, just kind of in between the two. Performance on this one is about 7 hours on average, so it's a little bit better than the EDT, not quite as good as the EDP, again kind of putting it here in the middle. And in comes Yves Saint Laurent Y Eau Fraiche, the newest flanker. This is a 2020 release, and I'm honestly really impressed with this one, and I really do like it. You can check out my review. I already posted that and everything, so you can hear my full thoughts there. This one is farthest from the other flankers in terms of its smell. It really doesn't have a whole lot of that original YSL Y DNA in there. It loses most of that sweetness prominent in the other flankers. Now, what you will notice is this one kind of goes in the cologne type of direction. I'm talking about fragrances like Dior Homme Cologne, Givenchy Gentleman Cologne, even Versace Man Eau Fraiche, Chanel Allure Homme Sport Cologne. All of these colognes or Eau Fraiche scents, right? They're all just kind of completely different than the DNA, just amping up the citrus, and that's basically what they did here. This one utilizes lemon and mint and bergamot in the opening, giving it a nice zesty summery smell. And I mean, if you look at the bottle here, it kind of speaks for itself. kind of reminiscent of some of those other summer-based fragrances with the white cap, like you get from, again, a lot of them. Even, Dior Eau Sauvage Cologne, that's another one. It has the white cap, has the white accenting around it like this one, frosted glass bottle, all that good stuff. Kind of speaks for itself here. Now, I will say the only downside with this fragrance is the dry down. The dry down, like I mentioned in my review, left a bit to be desired, which is a bummer, and I do wish they could have done something to spice it up a little bit more, but unfortunately they couldn't. So performance with this one kind of varies depending on the day, depending on really the weather. On the warmer days, it does perform better, so that is a plus side. Longevity anywhere from about 6-7 hours or so, just kind of around in that range. Not too bad. It's about on par with the EDT, probably a little bit better though. Projection is going to be based off of the heat. The more heat you have on this one, the better it's going to be, and this is one where definitely should use heat. Now, that being said, I think this one is a great substitute for your really, really hot days. So, you can go a number of ways with this collection here. You can just collect them all and then, hey, you have them all. So this one is definitely the freshest from the line, and again, it varies the most from the YSL Y line. So, I do think it is one that is worth picking up if you like citrus-based fragrances and stuff for really high heat. But do keep in mind, if you like the YSL Y DNA and you want to be wearing that, you're not necessarily going to get that with this one. So guys, that's pretty much going to be it for me. That was, my full rundown on all of the YSL Y fragrances. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully, you learned a thing or two, and hopefully it was worth the wait. Again, a lot of people were requesting it, so I'm glad I got it out to you guys. So that's going to do it for me. All these will be linked down below in the description if you want to pick them up there. I'll see you guys tomorrow night with another one. Take care.